All right. Welcome, everyone. Let's call to order the Thursday, February 3rd, 2022 work session. Call to order. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And since Ken is the newbie back, the new old new, he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fantastic, Ken. Thank you. All right. Now, what's on the agenda next is public comments, but obviously as we go through this, if there's some public comments that gets presented, then, we're going to accept them. Just type them in and follow the rules. The town of North Beach welcomes public comments. Please place your comments in the chat box. Please state your name and address when you do submit a public comment, and we will address them as quick as possible when they come up. If anybody wants to start one, all right, hold on. Oh, never mind. It was from Paul. So, man, that was quick. All right. So let's move right into the business items. Tonight, what we're going to do is start the discussion. There's been a lot of rumors all over about the ARPA money. And last week, I believe they finalized it, stamp of approval. And it's totally different than what they said when they first started this conversation. It's completely the opposite direction from what I was told when the rumors were starting. Joanne did sit on a recent webinar. I've had many conversations with fellow mayors around the state, also throughout Southern Maryland. And tonight is the start of this conversation. And as we go through here, if you have any questions, she has her presentation that you have in board docs. Just write them down and we're going to get them answered. And then we're going to move right into a discussion about some of the items that myself and Donnie Bowen submitted from some capital projects, so we can explain them. Also, we can tell you where we stand on some of them already. And tonight is not about decisions. Tonight is a conversation that we need to start with. But let me go ahead and unmute Joanne, and I'm going to turn it over to Joanne, and she's going to run with it and with the presentation she has attached. Thank you, Joe.
Excuse me, Mayor, do I need to share my screen, or does everyone have their copy?
I'll take care of it.
Paul's going to.
Okay. American Rescue Plan. And like the mayor said, there are some things that have changed, but actually they've streamlined it and made it a little easier for municipalities like ourselves who are very small. Some of the larger ones, they may not take advantage of this new regulation, but it's recommended to us that we do. And you'll see as we go through this what the difference is. So we did that on, the last one was on January 26th. There's been a few others. And you can also access these through MML's website if you wanted to go back and look at some of the presentations if you haven't been following along, just for your information. Now I need to turn the page. How do I do that on this? Okay. Well, I just tell Paul, I guess. Okay. The first installment, we received that back in September. The amount was $1,004,000, just like you see there. The second installment will be the same amount. So full funding to the town is over $2 million. Obligations for the fund must occur before December 31st of 2024. And then all funds before December 31st of 2026 have to be expensed. I know that this is more for Ms. Lawton, because she hates acronyms. I just wanted to give her a couple of details of what those are as we go through, because I might not remember exactly what they say. So NEUs are non-entitlement units. That's about 145 in Maryland, and that's the majority. That is municipalities. Some are not labeled as non-entitlements, like Baltimore City, those types of arrangements where they're large or called by another name. And I don't have that name. American Rescue Plan Act, and then the SLFRF. I'm sure glad they abbreviated that one. Okay, so that's just an overview. Can we go to the next one, Paul? These are the 4 eligible categories under the ARP funding, and they're basically the same. They did broaden one of the areas, and that's towards a little more towards the sewer and water portion of it. But they're basically the same, and they get a little more detailed in projects, the Treasury does. And you'll see a copy of that in there also. But loss of revenue sector, investment in water and sewer, broadband infrastructure, these are all areas that were already included. And then the negative impacts on the economy and pay for essential workers. So those are the 4 areas. Can we skip to the next one? Final rule. The interim final rule right now has it set so that all of your revenue loss, documentation of your revenue loss has to be documented and projected over 3 years. There are 2 percentages they are using. It's 5.2, and then I think it's 6.3, but I don't have that number in front of me. That's the projected growth that you could include if you were to calculate the revenue loss. Now and that's the interim final rule, the way it is now. With the final rule that we're talking about tonight, you don't have to calculate that. It's a one-time thing that you decide. And what that does, it reduces the amount of paperwork that's required to obtain the grants. And they are basically grants. I call them that because there's going to be various reports and documentation that you're going to have to provide, in addition to expenses and staffing and things like that, that you would document anyway, but it's just more tedious. With the new final rule, what we're saying is you can claim no matter what you get as a municipality. Say, for example, like we're getting 2 million, say Chesapeake Beach is getting 5, and they want to go with the final rule. They can do that up to, if you've received $10 million to that, without all the documentation that goes with it. So what I'm recommending, and what Haggerty, who is the consulting group the state of Maryland is using to help implement this program, is that all small municipalities really should go with the final rule. And that frees us up to have simpler documentation and reporting procedures, but it also reduces the amount of time that it takes for them to review our processes. We still follow like they normally would for our procurement processes and things like that, but you just don't have to do as many reporting obligations as you initially had to do. We need to make that decision before April 1st, because once you either have to go with the interim final rule or go with the final rule. And then the first report for this is due on April 30th. So we've received our funds. We will be reporting on the April 30th deadline. And again, I'm recommending the final rule. Paul, can you flip that, please? This is just a little bit of an explanation about the $10 million that I spoke of earlier. And you can apply your entire allocation to, I don't know why any government as small as the town of North Beach would not choose this final rule. It's such a simplification, but You have some that may have specific things that are more complicated than what our plans are. And the mayor will lay out what those capital plans are as we get through this presentation. But yeah, that I can't understand why anybody wouldn't. Okay, the next one, Paul. I just put that in there for effect. That was Haggerty's thing with the big X, and one of the percentages is 5.2. That's what I was talking about, the loss, and you calculated on the 3 years, blah, 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 blah. It would take us a very long time to make it up to $10 million if we did revenue loss every season, and basically the beach would be the revenue loss. So it'd be a long time to get that revenue when we can just claim it at one time. Okay, so you can skip that one. That was just for effect. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I've got a cold. There are some things in the final rule that are not included, but the Treasury did go into detail, and I included 2 excerpt pages, number 37 and 38 from the Treasurer's report. And I also provided the sources at the back of this document. If anybody wanted late night reading, they could go through and read it. But it really identifies some of the projects that the mayor is going to be talking to you about in his capital projects improvement plan. So I believe that we fall within the, with our stormwater projects and sidewalks and things like that, we do find that we are covered as far as spending for the ARP money. Okay, the next one. This is what it just give you. This is how simple they've cut this down. And Mayor, if you went to the first couple of workshops, you know how complicated it was going to be with the expenses. This is
horrible.
If you read that paragraph, that's how it's so simple. Why wouldn't you do that? Because if there's expenses for employees, you just put it in one column. If you have expenses for expenses, you just put that in a different column. And then you keep your detail. It's so simple. It's, even I could do it.
That's good to know.
Okay. Yeah. We can go to the next one. Oh, non-federal match. Donnie's flood committee, they just did 2 applications, or actually it was 3 applications. And that was a tremendous thing. But some of that money that we put towards match, we believe can be paid out of the funds that we're talking for ARP. And those projects, if funded, that's well almost into $2 million between the grant and what we're proposing that you use out of the ARP monies. So that saves the general fund of having to put that money up. I mean, some of these projects that we just applied for, or Tani's group just applied for, one of them is 1.5 million. So I'd like to see that come out of this type of funding instead of the general fund, but it helps. Every little bit helps. Okay. Can we go to, I don't know what I was thinking when I put all these slides in. Some of them are kind of, yeah, you don't really, you could read it. It just probably doesn't really, it applies to what we're doing, but it's not as exciting as the next few pages. Let's go all the way down to, and it can see, I don't know if you could read this on your side. I'm not very good at graphics or.
You're talking about this one, Joe?
It's the one, let's go to the one with water and sewer infrastructure at the Department of Treasury. Yeah, one more.
Yeah, right there.
Yes. And you can read just some of the samples of the projects that they're talking about can be included now in the ARP funding that weren't before. I mean, so it really opened up a lot of opportunities for us. And then the next page I like even better. If you flip that one, Paul, is the, you know, the stormwater and culverts. I mean, that's great. That's all things that we need based on the capital improvement plan that the mayor's going to review with you. And on the last pages, I just list the resources that you could go find out more information for yourself. And then also, like I said, you can look at any one of the videos and workshops that we've already done through MML, which you probably already know because you guys are on it. But I just wanted to give you a little information and so that you would be informed when the mayor's going through this capital project. But that's basically the end of my presentation. So if anyone has any questions after this or after the mayor's presentation, then you tell me, we'll look at it and give it to you and get back to you. Mayor?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joe. And obviously, we all have Joe on speed dial. You have her email, phone number, you know where she is. So if you have any questions, what she presented, take time in to take it in. We did not get this out sooner. We apologize, but take a look at it, you know, over the next couple of days, see if you have any questions. Really, if I had to summarize this, it's saying, hey, the feds have designed an expedited method to use the funds that they've sent to us. And oh, by the way, where it used to be really tiny what we allow, now it's wide open. So if you want to summarize these 12 pages, or excuse me, 15 pages, that's what it says. It's opened it up that we have more opportunity to use the funds to help our town in areas that is needed. And probably some areas have been needed for years now. So that's what I'm going to step in now. Let me, hold on one second. All right. So, council members, y'all have any questions yet before I start chatting? And Paul, if you can take us off of this screen. And I don't know if you want to bring up what we submitted on, I think, Tuesday. And then
Mayor, I thought you and Donna were going to work on the capital.
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, all the capital. So I have the expert with us, Donnie Bone. He's in Jan's position. Now I don't know where it is now.
Right.
All right, so let me explain real quick, DB, and then we'll start. Now, what we have is 3 pages, maybe 4 pages of capital improvements that we set down and we dissect the town and then we broke it down. Now, you know, this is just for us to talk about tonight. So we did not, you're not going to see a 15-page paragraph per item. We can go in better detail, but this is just an overview to give you all some direction, some understanding where we stand as a town and what challenges we're facing now. And that's only going to continue to grow for our residents throughout the whole town. So if as we go through here, the first 3 items, 1, 2, and 3, are the 3 grants that Joe mentioned that the Stormwater Flood Committee with Joanne, with Dawn, I'm sure Stacy was helping. It was Donnie. It was all hands on deck. Lauren, it was all hands on deck to get those 3 grants submitted. And we got them in time to MDE. They did an absolutely amazing job. But within those grants, I don't know, and I will get this to you. Joe may be able to answer it. She might not this time. Whatever dollar amount that we need to match, we will get to you. I don't recall. I apologize. I did not write it down for 1, 2, and 3. So these are the 3 that we submitted to MDE to get grants. Within each one of these, we had to put some matching money. Joe, do you know or recall off the top of your head what each one was for these?
The 300,000, that was $50,000, and it wasn't required, but it does help our rating system. When you submit a grant, it gives points, so it helps that way. The number 2, that was 20,000, and that's 20,000 from that state highway money, Donnie, that you got for mitigation for 261. And then on this third one, 7th Street, and this is off the top of my head, I want to say we did 500,000 in that. So those are the monies, basically.
So
Wait a minute, hold on. You said for number 3, it was 500,000?
Yeah,
It's
hold on.
close to that. Greg, if you look further on number 3 there, the total for that project, I broke it out in 2 phases in case we didn't get a grant and we might want to do something at the boardwalk. It was 350 where the damage occurred over the last storm. But if we do the total riprap rock all along Atlantic Avenue, all the way up to the north end, then that's where we got the 1.5
yeah,
million. And what we did, we put money in there, and what we did, we put it in for land for the pump station at 7th Street, and we put it up for design. That pump station was designed back in 2007, I believe. So in case we had to upgrade the design, so me and Joe, that way it looks more like the town's willing to donate some money, like she said, and then the grant, it makes it more easier for us or rate better to get the grant, because we're committed to putting some money into the project too.
So is it 500K required, or is it just another one to get points?
Yeah, it's not required. It's just for points. Yep.
Got it.
So as you look
We
at
broke
this
that up a
list,
little.
if you look at this list, 1 through 3, the reason why we broke it apart was those are the ones we just submitted. I don't know the time frame to hear back. I do know we met with Gretchen the other day. We talked to her about it. And then I started the reach out to the legislation in the state to get their support for these 3 items. These 3 grants are extremely important if we can get them, because they would address a lot of the issues we're having along the waterfront. So it'd be great if we get them. If we don't, we got to punt and come up with plan B. But the point is, those are the 3 that we did. Now, when we go to the next 4 through 14.
Mayor, real quick, Mayor, just so the council knows, I read on that application June 1st, and that sounded, pretty good to me, but it said June 1st, we should hear from the grants. Now, whether that's the case or not, but it did say that on the application. So that's a pretty quick turnaround, I think.
Yeah, it'd be nice to hear. We're going to do our best to get the grants, and we'll keep you in the loop as we know more, because those are big ticket items that could go a long way helping us down along the water. As we go into number 4, replace service saddles. Number 5, replace existing water meter pits. And number 6, additional water line valves. You can pretty much clump those together. And as you read them, you can see the dates of them. Number 4, number 5, and number 6, we don't have it all. So 1990 were those 2 items. DB can give us an explanation of it. And then number 6 is that when we have a water main break, we have to shut down multiple streets to fix, because we don't have the valves in place to just, really focus on that street where the water main valve. So when one water main valve breaks, a lot of homes are affected. And because of the age of our infrastructure, it's getting older. I mean, some of this stuff you'll see is 30, 40 years old. It's wear and tear. It's quality of construction back in the day, because of the product wasn't designed like it is today. And the requirements were different back then. So DB, if you could, please explain number 4, number 5, and number 6 better than what I can do.
Yeah, I'll try to run through them real quick. And what we looked at these, because when the money first came out, like the mayor said, it was focused on utility infrastructure type money. So we started looking at this stuff first, and then we found out later on that it could cover a lot more stuff. So that's kind of why you see this. And then service saddles, what that is, that's a service saddle goes on the main line. The main line C900 is plastic. That's in good shape. That was put in 1990. But they put the service connections, which goes to each house, which each meter pit is a saddle, what they call a service saddle. And that wasn't stainless steel. If we replace them now, we use stainless steel. But back in the day, 1990, when they put it in, that was just zinc, regular metal. Over the years, we've had them fail. It's 40 years old. It's not something, you know, you might have 10 next year. We might have 2 next year. It's not something you see. It's not something that definitely, and we don't have to do it all at one time, but it's something that's going to happen. If you know what I mean, it's there. We've had problems. They're only getting worse. A couple saddles that we replaced, we dug down and repaired. That's when you see the water. When you see on the news, on TV, water blowing up out of the street, 9 times out of 10, that's a service saddle that ruptured, and you have water coming up out the asphalt. So then you have to shut the whole system down, dig it up, find the problem, put a new saddle on, and then, you know, turn the system back on. Like I say, when we dug down, almost everyone we dug down on, it was only a thin piece of metal holding that saddle to the main line. Really, the dirt and the compaction of it on some of them was the only thing holding it there. So just looking at that condition in that's what made me think like it's one of them things that's underground. A lot of people don't think about it, but it's 40 years old and it's going to happen. So that's kind of what that is. And please feel free to ask any questions if I can explain that any further or better, whatever we need to do. We have 620 service connections throughout the whole system. We could do it block at a time. We could do it in phases. We could do it all one time. And we just put this together for discussion to give you all an idea of what we're talking about. So that's number 4. If we go up to number 5.
Ronnie, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You said you looks like you replaced approximately 20 over the past 3 years.
Yes, sir.
The cost for those 20?
It's roughly $2,000 a piece by the time, and that's counting, you know, saw cutting the road, digging up, putting a new coupling on there. And those have went from $200 to probably $600 now with inflation. But, and then that's, you know, putting good material in there, counting the material and then repaving it. So it'd be about, you know, roughly estimating $2,000 a piece.
So that's a good price to 2,000. So
Yeah, that's
comes-
start to finish. That's, you know, putting a patch, asphalt patch back on it.
So 1.238.
Right.
Okay, and how long does that take to replace those?
We did the ones down on the, where they raised 261, you know, going across the marsh there, State Highway. We did 8 of those, and we probably did 8 in 2 days. You know, we had them all dug up. We turned the water off. We did 4 one day and 4 the next day. So we got, you know, 8 knocked out, and that was not a full day. That was letting traffic,
Correct.
you know, letting everything happen in the morning, and then probably like from 9 to 2. So you possibly could get, you know, as much as 8 of them a day, probably if it, you know, we got them laid out right, got them dug up and got it on a roll.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good question. Good question.
Next item we have is item number 5, and it's replacing existing water meter pits. Those were put in also in 1990 when the water system was put in, and the type of pit they put in is called a thermocoil meter pit everywhere except for San Francisco. San Francisco, that was a new development. That's in 2007. And they are a totally different style. And this would not be replacing the ones in San Francisco, just in the original part of town. But back in the day, they came out with this new design, and everybody thought it was pretty neat. You could pull the meter up so you could read it. You could, you know, it's got a coil in the pit. The hose actually coils around in a circle. So the meters, when you're not reading them, you sink them down the bottom. They're about 18 inches from the top of the road. And that's so they don't freeze or whatever. But if you need to work on them, read them or whatever, you can grab the meter assembly, pull it up to the top of the ground, and then you can read it, work on it, take the meter out and everything else. And everybody thought this was the greatest thing that ever came out. But after time, they're finding out that the blue tubing is the blue poly type tubing that they've now outlawed. They use that for the coil piece. And that, with a little bit of chlorine over time, gets brittle, and where it hooks onto the bottom of a meter pit to a copper crimp fitting, we've had problems with that cracking. And when you go to pull the meter pit up, the whole line just splits. And then all of a sudden you got, you know, a leak, and you have to shut down the system again and do the same deal. Dig it up, replace the meter pit. What we've been doing is when we do that, if we have a double meter pit, we go ahead and put 2 new pits in. We take care of both of them at the same time. That's in the same situation. You know, it's something that, you know, may not happen right away, but they're 40 years old. We've had more and more as the year goes on. They're probably only going to get worse. So, you know, expect to see as the years increase, like 1 through 5 years, we're going to have maybe 10 this year, maybe 20 next year. It's going to get worse, in other words. So, and that's what you see here. We have 511 meter pits. And that's because we have 1,033 customers, but a lot of the meter pits are dual meter pits. So you have two pits, 2 meters in each pit. It serves 2 houses. One pit would serve 2 houses. So that's why it's only 511 pits.
Donnie, I have a question. What is the new design of these
The
instead of the
new design, now what the new design is, it's all copper. Instead of that blue poly connection, it's copper, and it's a preset meter yoke that is made to the right height with a plastic vault, and it has a metal lid on it. So you do away with the coil, the blue tubing type material, and you go with the brand new copper, which would last 50-year life expectancy.
So what, you just lift up the lid, you can look down, you can see the meters?
Yes, you have to lift up, and we have the radio read system in now.
Oh, okay.
So actually, but that's a good question. If you have to work on it, you lift it up, and the meter setting, what they call a meter yoke, is 18 inches below the ground now, but it stays at 18 inches below. So you can reach in, you have access, you can reach in if you have to change it. But we have the tablet with the radio read meters now, so we can ride around, actually walk down the street, and it pings to the tablet as you're walking down. So reading them is like night and day. It's actually improved greatly, but still for maintenance or working on them, they're only 18 inches below the ground surface.
So they're linked by radio. Now, does that mean that there's some sort of power source that's there with the meters, and what's the possibility of those failing?
It's a battery in there.
You have to battery. Is it just like an ordinary 9-volt or something that you just?
Yeah, they're watertight, sealed, and we have a 15-year warranty on the batteries.
All right.
Real quick, Ken, to catch you up, we replaced the water meters, all of them, over what would we say, 20
About 6 months.
Yeah, 2020 to 2021, we replaced the water meters.
Oh, okay.
All right. We went a new system. Our system, the old ones are getting old. Came out with a new system in September of 2019. Had a contractor come in, and we knocked out like 80% of the meters, so we could do it all at one time and get up to speed with the new radio technology. And then Public Works went back, and the other 20%, we've been knocking them out, since that time. But we, got to about 95%. We might have one or two now, but it used to take maybe 3 or 4 days to read meters. Now we can do it in 2 or 3 hours.
And now you don't have to lift up the covers, and you don't have to get there, and you don't have to expose it to anything.
Well, the good thing about too is we have a tool that we bought. We can go around, we can sit this tool on the meter itself, and it'll give a 45-day history to the customer. So they got a high water meter bill. We go out, we hook this tool up to it. It gives them a 45-day history. It can show them exactly when the water was going through the pipe, what's going on in the toilet. If it's running at midnight, well, nobody's up at midnight. We must have a toilet leak. So that's coming in to be well worth the money. But the pits are the original 1990s, so they're that's 42 years ago. So they're getting to 32 years. I'm sorry. They're probably getting to the end of their service life.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Good question. Keep them coming. All right, number 6, DB.
Number 6 here. The system does have a lot of valves on it, but we have some areas where you'll have an intersection, and you got 4 streets at the intersection there, but you only have 2 valves. So if we have a main break, that means you have to go up maybe 4 blocks in each direction and cut off that whole area just to isolate. So back when they did it, I don't know if they were trying to save money or whatever, but instead of putting like 3 valves, so you could cut it off at each, intersection and just have water going one way. Sometimes they only put 2, sometimes they only put 1. And that kind of limits us. And this was a thing where I don't think it's a lot of money, but it could keep a lot of people in service. If we install these valves, we could isolate down to 1 block instead of cutting off 6 blocks. In other words, it's one there where Mexico is, for instance, and we have a valve right at the intersection of 7th and Bay, but then going around all the way around Atlantic up to 9th Street, there's no other valves to isolate that. So if something happens there along the waterfront, we have to shut that whole area down pretty much just to work on anything. So they're not as costly. I got approximately 10 valves in there, and estimated cost is 25 to 50, but that would give us a lot more flexibility for outages, emergencies, water main breaks, and that type of thing. Unfortunately, we have had 2 valve failures, and also just because of the era they were done, the valves do not have the stainless steel bolts in the top that hold the valves together. So we actually had a valve where the bolts had totally rusted, it was nothing left. The material had just disintegrated, and the top of the valve blew right up in the air. The water pressure blew the inside of the valve out right up by Greenwood Avenue there. And we had a couple of those, so I'm kind of concerned, about those valves. When we were able to rebuild that valve, we just ordered a bunch of stainless steel bolts to have in stock at the shop. So we just put stainless steel bolts and put the top kind of right back on. But, that's a concern. Anybody have any questions on that one?
Thanks.
All right. Bay Avenue wet well, that was in there pre-1994. And this one inside, the concrete, it's a square concrete box, and all the flow from that area, all the sewage flow enters the wet well. That is a small wet well, and it doesn't get a lot of turnover. And the problem with that is you get sewer gas. So you got flow coming in there, it's sitting there all day. Sometimes the pump there only run 2 hours a day. So you don't get a whole lot of turnover. And that means the problem with that is you have sewer gas that's there. We do have a vent on there, but the concrete is getting to the point where it's flaking off. We're losing 1.5 inches or so of concrete structure from the inside, just from the gas, sewer gas, eating up the concrete there. It's flaking off. My concern there is if we keep letting it go, that it possibly could develop a hole all the way through the wet well. Then we'd have groundwater coming into the wet well, and we'd have sewer going out of the wet well. And that's one thing I'll put on the list. That doesn't have to be done tomorrow, but I just wanted to put that on the list to make everybody aware and kind of get that on our capital project radar. There are two ways. There is a company out there. I haven't got an estimate yet, but there is a company out there. If you take that wet well offline, if we were able to bypass that for a day or two, that they can come in, clean that, power wash it, and maybe reline that. And that's why you see two prices on there. That might be as much as $50,000 because of the bypass. And then the worst case scenario, or maybe the best case scenario, would be we'd have to build an entirely new wet well. The only problem there is we don't have a lot of property right there. We do have those lots that have been sitting there forever that I don't think they're going to build on, but they're not ours. They're sitting to the south of that area. But that's why I had 150 in there. If we have to do something and we have to put a brand new wet well in there, then it would be more towards the 150 range. Anybody have any questions on that one?
Yeah, how long do they typically last, Danny? Does this one was installed in before 1984? I mean, it's still going, but obviously you got some issues. So what's the typical lifespan?
They have some in DC that were put in the 20s probably, and they're still lasting. But the main thing is like the gas, and it's just sitting there. So that one's more of a problem because of the gas, it's not enough turnover. Like you don't have volume coming in, like at Chesapeake Avenue pump station, which is right there by Triton's garage. We have 140,000 gallons a day coming in there and going out of there. So it's coming in and going out, and it's turning over. Bay Avenue, you might have 5,000 gallons a day going through there. So you got gas just sitting in there building up over time. And it's concrete. And now it also, like they used to coat the outside back, before that for weather and everything. But now they also do an epoxy coating on the inside of the wet well. So they're made to last longer nowadays. But I would say, average lifespan would be 50 to 70 years for the concrete structure.
So if you replace the lines for 50K, that'll take care of the gas issue buildup.
Yeah, they put a coating like a 2-inch, like almost like a gunite on your pool. If you had an in-ground pool, if you kind of relate to that, when they do the plaster part, it's kind of like that plaster layer. They come in, they power wash it, they completely scrub it with the acid wash type, and they get all the material and debris out of there. And then they would come in and they put that white coat on there, and that gets hard. We did some manholes when I worked for Coward County Water and Sewer, and that stuff got hard as a rock. You couldn't even hit it with a sledgehammer after it hardened up for 2 days. It wouldn't even chip or whatever. So it's pretty good stuff. It's like Quickcrete.
Okay.
It's like same as, like I say, a pool liner, but made for sewer gas and sewer environment.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. That would be the way. If we can do that, that would be the way I would recommend getting that wet well done.
Good.
All possible.
I was hoping you would say.
Yep. Most definitely. Number 8 here, this is an item that we put on here. This needs to have some discussion probably, but for since I started working here, I've never figured out the drain along Atlantic Avenue, why they pitched the bay back towards the houses, unless it was a MDE requirement where they didn't have the road runoff run out to the street. But they put in slotted trench drain pipe, and the trenches, Greg can tell you because he lives down that way, it's only about 2 inches wide. And with the sand and the amount of dirt and debris we have coming over the wall with the wave action, that we power our sections out before. And when we get a storm, or if we get a little bit of debris, I mean, it clogs right back up. So you can spend 2 weeks getting maybe a 50-foot section cleaned out, and maybe take 2 hours to clog it back up again. So it's poor design. A lot of it's not working correctly. It was designed to have the water come over the seawall, go in the drain, I guess, go to the 9th Street stormwater pump station, pump it back out. But we've also found that not only does the trench clog up, and it's pretty hard to keep that clean, but it sits on top of an 8-inch diameter galvanized pipe. And a lot of that pipe from the salt water, seawater, is starting to corrode and rust, and you get, some sinkholes in that area because of that. The pipe's starting to collapse. So the drain's clogged, and the galvanized pipe is also aging. And, I would say a lot of it's probably in pretty bad shape. You can't really see it, but the sections we have dug up for whatever reason, a lot of it's rusted in pretty bad shape. So that's just something we wanted to put on the radar also. We're going to look at that along with the RFP we have out for the stormwater study. A lot of these things on here are going to be included for the firm that comes down to who wins the RFP stormwater study to look at these type and also make recommendations. And I think the timing with this money, just seeing what Joanne said earlier, we have a little bit of time. So we put these things on there, but we can get recommendations, discussion, and, a few ideas on this before we jump on any of it, really. So that's on the list, just to be on the list, because that does need attention, but we need to rank that where the council and mayor feels it's necessary. The next one here, number 9, failing utility access hole. That's a sewer manhole. They did right there at Chesapeake Avenue and 5th Street. And back in 1984, they replaced the line from 7th Street, right in front of West Lawn there, up to 100 feet short of that intersection for some reason. I don't know why, whether it was easier. They didn't want to replace that manhole at the time, or what the deal was, but they left the original manhole there, and they left just a pipe, if you can imagine, a 6-inch pipe sticking out. And that pipe pumps when the Bay Avenue pump station kicks on, it shoots water like it's coming out of a straw. And over time now, it drops to the bottom, it drops about 4 feet, and it knocked the bricks out of the bottom of the channel. The channel is where the sewer is supposed to hit in the channel and then flow on down to the Chesapeake Avenue pump station. Well, this thing it's poorly built. And now when we had the big October 28th flood and Bay Avenue pump station ran almost 24 hours constantly, so much water came out there and so much pressure that it ate the bottom of the manhole out. And we probably only have an inch or 2 of concrete left before we have dirt there. So the brick channel is pretty much gone. And that's what was blocking up the manhole that night that we had an issue. We did we're able to remove the debris, get that out of the way, get the flow back going again. But that thing needs pretty quick attention at the intersection there to make sure the sewer flow keeps rolling in the right direction and we don't go right through to the bottom, where it's dirt, where we're having a problem with groundwater coming in and sewer leaking out again. I had 2 contractors look at that. I'm waiting on an estimate to replace the whole manhole. And also, like we talked before, we're looking at what they call a drop connection and redoing the bottom of that channel. A drop connection, instead of it shooting out of a straw and dropping 4 or 5 feet and hitting that bottom and causing a constant splash, which wearing it out, it would be a 90-degree pipe put in there where it's actually would turn, come down to the bottom of the manhole, and then go in the channel and do like a, flow like it's supposed to. I'm waiting on a price for both of those. Of course, the relining and the drop connection is going to be a lot cheaper than replacing the manhole. So hopefully we'll have estimates. I would anticipate maybe 2 weeks, we should have 2 good firm estimates on repairing that.
And just to be clear, the storm on the 28th didn't cause the wear and tear. It knocked out the bricks. It caused, but it made us actually go through there with a camera and look at it. And that's when we found the wear and tear from all the years of the way it was designed. So the storm allowed us to go in there and gave us a reason to go in there with a camera. And that's how we're finding this stuff out in that manhole right on the corner right there. So it's something that needs to be addressed. You know, they've done what they can to patch it up and, you know, deal with it for right now, but it is something we will have to address sooner than later.
Put a piece of what they call elephant granite, just like in your kitchen. So now we have a piece of the elephant granite in the bottom there. So when that water's coming, it's hitting that granite, and we're hoping that it at least holds up until we get a permanent solution. So it's hitting that granite, and that granite's so hard that's holding up better than the brick and the concrete would, but at least it's hitting a splash box, in other words, and continuing on down the pipe for right now anyway. Number 10, refurbish and replace. Really what we're looking at up at Greenwood Avenue at the well station. We have the water tower down at my shop at Dayton Avenue. And when the wells kick on, chlorine gets added to that water. It gets pumped up all the way to the top of the tower. It mixes as it goes up, and it shoots into the top of the tower and cascades down. And that gives it mixing time, you know, in the tank to get your chlorine to kill any bacteria that might be on the tank walls or in the pipe or wherever we have left. Greenwood Avenue, they didn't build a tower there due to money or, you know, space. But what you do have up there is a 5,000 gallon buried tank in the ground. So when that well kicks on, instead of going up into a tower, what it does, the chlorine gets added right there at where the well, in the well house. That water comes out to a 5,000 gallon tank. And the time, they have a calculation figured where it takes like an hour for the water to go in the tank and come back out the tank. And what that does, that gives you time for the chlorine to mix, you know, mix in with the water, get a uniform mix instead of short circuiting, just shooting right through and coming out. But that tank was put in 1991. We've never really pulled the inspection plate. We pulled it off. We looked at it. The water was pretty clean. Everything was good. But I feel like what this is saying, we need to look at that tank, get a good inspection done on it, check out the condition. And if there is a problem, you know, we can come up with a budget to address it. Hopefully, when we pull that off, we go in there, we clean it out, totally pump it out. It might be in great shape. It might not need them, you know, might not have a problem, but just, we want to get an estimate. We want to look at it because it's, you know, it's been a while. We need to get that on a regular maintenance schedule, at least every, you know, 5 years or so to clean that out, look inside and see what kind of shape it's in. So I just wanted to put that on the list. There's another thing that needs to be looked at. And the 25,000 is for a good inspection. That's probably a little high. I talked to the company that does our water towers. They come once a year and actually pop the top, look in the water tower. Every 2 years, they get inside the tower, power wash it and clean it out. So they're used to that kind of work. They're, you know, set up for it. I sent a picture of the manway today, the size of the manway that you can get into the tank with. And now that he has that, he can give me a little bit firmer estimate on what it would take to just do inspection of that tank and a full clean out. Anybody have any?
Do the inspection.
The actually company they have certified inspectors they check the inside out. They do the thickness of the steel. They do whether they recommend like a coating added to the inside. And
so this is not the repairs, but just the inspection. That's what I'm
right. The budget prices, and that's probably high, you know, on the high side, but that's just for an inspection and a report.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Donnie.
Yep. Can you give me some more? Number 11 here, we've always added sidewalks on our budget. So we want to keep that on there. And what I did on this one, you know, walking down, we have some sidewalks that are sinking in some places. We have some sidewalks that definitely need some repair. We have places where trees damaged. But in here, this gives the council and the mayor and the staff you know, this item's in here, but we can decide where we want to, you know, what the priorities are for sidewalks. And I got a $20 per square foot price. Average block, I think we did the math the other day, but the average block's like 350 feet long and the sidewalks are 4 feet wide. So it would be $20 a square foot times that formula, like if we wanted to replace a whole block. So the council can pick and choose. I'll put that in there so we can pick and choose to do as much as we want. We can address areas that y'all feel it's necessary. You know, I can walk around and try to get a priority list for you if you'd like to do that. This can be new sidewalks if we think you need them somewhere, or this can be repairing existing sidewalks. But we just wanted to put a number in there for definitely, you know, we've always had a number in for sidewalks in our budget. So we wanted to have that in our capital budget for sure. Let me know any questions or comments on that one. Milling and paving our roads. We also, you know, usually put a certain amount in our budget for milling and repairing of the town streets. They were paved, and Joanne can probably tell you better than me, but it's probably been 15 to 20 years ago when they came through town and did all the streets. Some of the streets have been paved since then, but a lot of the towns, the pavement's probably 15 to maybe even 20 years old. So we're starting to show signs of wear and tear. But think about this in the back of your mind. The reason I put the saddles and doing all that work under the roads, you know, ahead of this is, you know, if we get that work done first, it wouldn't make sense to come in, mill and repave a road and then tear it up to put saddles in. So we'd like to think about this, do a good strategic way where we might do a block. And when we finish with the saddles, we come in and mill and pave that block. But we did this the same way, and it's, I got some estimates. $3 was the highest estimate, so I used that just to be safe for inflation and the way everything's going up in the world these days. So $3 per square foot is what the price we have for that's milling out 2 inches of pavement and replacing it with 2.5 inches. When they roll it, it would come out to 2 inches. And I put a number in there. We did that calculation, so that would, on the high end, would be $37,000 per block. You know, if we did a block from First Street to Second Street, say, on one street, that's 36 feet wide and 350 feet long. And like I said, that's a little bit on the high end, but with prices and the way they are, I wanted to be high instead of too cheap. And that's for the council and the mayor and staff to, you know, pick and choose and look. We are going to go around. We had one of the estimators, we had him go around and look at the streets and access, you know, give us his professional opinion on which ones he thought was worse. We didn't get that report back yet, but he said he wouldn't mind doing it for us. So he's supposed to be looking at it just to give us his opinion. We have contacted a couple companies to come around, but it's pretty expensive. They drive around with the camera, they video the road. They don't really show you the base. The problem in North Beach with a lot of the roads and the cracking you see is there never was a proper base put in under the asphalt. When they came in, they paved over top. It wasn't that much traffic back then, probably. You know, they wanted to look good, so it looked good on top, but they just came in and paved over top of what we had. But they didn't address the issue like what's under the road. Now with more traffic, more visitors coming to town, traffic picking up the way it is, we have, you know, 3 times as much traffic probably than when I started in 2007. So that's taking the wear and tear on the roads. And that's why you see some of the cracking and alligating, just because it's, you know, clay-based instead of a gravel or, you know, foot of gravel underneath. A lot of the roads just have a clay base underneath them. So we have some problems with that. But that's in there. I gave you an estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Right.
want to add to the milling, the sidewalks. A lot of that will also be looked at with the RFP from the flood committee. So in other words, if there's some streets, like if you go to 8th Street, between Greenwood and probably Dayton, a lot of the asphalt has rolled curbing that is very useful when it comes to stormwater. But it is also not able to be done everywhere due to the fact if it doesn't have any backing to it, it will collapse. But the point is, what I want to just say to everybody is that the milling, the repair sidewalk, some of these stormwater or flooding things will be addressed in that company that's going to, whoever wins the RFP. So stay tuned. You'll see more in-depth information down the road when it comes to that report. We don't know when we're going to have that back, but I just want to let you know that, you know, there's more work to be done.
I'm really happy because that RFP for the stormwater went out and we're expecting bids back in a couple of weeks. So all this stuff is kind of tying together, and I'm glad we got a little bit of time to spend this money, but we need to look and think real hard and get our, you know, game plan going sooner than later. 13 here, flower beds along Bay Avenue. I don't know if anybody looked at those lately, but they're about the treated wood there. Some of it's better than others, and some of it's crumbling away to not much left. And I looked at them, and I've been talking to the mayor probably for a while, and he's thinking the same line, I think. But that area there, the bike path is kind of not wide enough to really use as a bike path. The flower beds are kind of whatever. So instead of getting a place to rebuild those flower beds, I just put in there, we need to look at it, maybe produce a design for the flower beds, maybe moving them closer to the boardwalk. So the flower beds will be right up against the boardwalk. Then you could put the bike path out in the street, and we could fix some of the slopes that we have, because coming off the boardwalk, some spots there, you don't have the one-to-one elevation you need for handicap accessible. You know, it's a steep drop in some of those areas. So instead of just coming in, putting new wood, fixing the flower beds, you know, I put some money in here and to see what y'all think about possibly putting that out for design so we can redo that area, but redo it to make it more user-friendly and come up with a, you know, better solution for that whole area there. And that can be done in phases, or that could be done however, you know, the council wishes and the mayor wishes. But that was what we were kind of thinking about there. I mean, the flower beds, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I just have two thoughts about that, because now, as you described it to me, there are two things that came up. What would be nice with the flower beds, just for longevity, but it may not be aesthetically pleasing, is not necessarily use pressurized wood, but use some sort of synthetic thing instead. So hopefully it lasts longer, like we did with the boardwalk itself. Just putting that out there. And the other thing I would hope that if we switch the two, the bike path and the flower beds, is that there's some sort of protective barrier that would be for bikes, like they'd have it, like they use like I don't want to say it's like a fencing, but it's sort of like little poles that would go along, so it would still protect the people who would be walking or biking from people who are coming down the road on their car, instead of something that's big and wide as the flower bed protecting them, but just something that would be smaller, so maybe you could get more room for the bike path, because you don't have much of a protected barrier that the flower bed itself is.
Right. Yeah, that's what I say. If we did that, I'd like to have a company come in like we did with the Sunrise Garden, you know, a company that does streetscape kind of deal, and look at that and it'd give us some ideas. You know, they could do that. Like say, what do they do in other places? You know, is this good for a bike path here? We got enough room, whatever. You have a real good design for that before we made a move. And like you said, we were thinking, instead of the wood, go with synthetic or go with stone, maybe even, or concrete or whatever that would hold up, you know, so it would, you know, be a 50-year lifespan instead of a 15 with the pressure wood or something maybe. But that's just on there for consideration, because unfortunately, sooner or later, we're going to have to either just put new treated wood on what we have, or we're going to have to address it, you know, maybe next, could be 5 years out, but it's going to have to be on the radar somewhere there. 14 is beach dredging. As you all know, we try to do this, and we study lose it, but we would still like to keep our beach. It was approximately 200,000 the last time we did it. We pulled out a 1.5 feet of dirt. I mean, 1.5 feet of sand, I'm sorry. Put that back on the beach. Unfortunately, with the way the weather is and the storm is, you just don't know how long it's going to last. But that's put on there. It's one thing. We had some residents that were concerned about the water's not even deep enough to get in to swim anymore. So that is on our capital list for things to look at. Ooh, Mayor, did I forget anything, or you want to add a lot?
No, yeah, I'm going to add to it. So when you talk about the beach dredging, we did it in 2018 spring. It's even if we make a decision, when that decision makes, there's a whole process, permits with MDE. I mean, it's you know, it takes a long time to get to the point to be allowed to do it. You can't use hoses. You got to use backhoes. There's so many rules when it comes to this. But I think it's something that's worth considering again. It's just one of those repeated processes. When we did it last time, the very next day, a storm came through and wiped out a lot of it the very next day. It wasn't even 24 hours. And the storm took it right back. And there's nothing we could do about that. We did our part. Mother Nature did their part, her part, their part, whatever. But that's why number 14 is on here. Now, DB, you did an excellent job going through these items. Now I'd like to open up the council to start our conversation. You can ask some questions. If there's some items you would like to see added on here, this is our wish list. And then I have a recommendation that Council Member Dotson brought up today that I'd like to address. And then we'll go from there. So I like to just start at the top as I see it. I see Paul's face first, And then if Paul has questions, doesn't, but let's go right down the order. And then if there's any comments from the other participants or other individuals on here, we'll take them. So Paul, what questions, what would you like to add to what DB just went through?
So a quick question on the beach dredging, Donnie. Have we ever done any kind of study as to maybe what's causing, I mean, obviously it's the bay, but I know
No,
we got the
actually,
breaker wall and
you're
stuff
right.
out there. I wonder, is there anything we can do to maybe try to reduce that erosion before we then go in and try to?
My grand scheme, and just from watching it or whatever, is we used to have sand before we had the breakwaters out there. I think the breakwaters are killing us as far as it's funneling the water. And, you know, I've talked to a few engineers and it's not really been confirmed yet, but those breakwaters kind of channel that water. So it's forcing it through there, a smaller area at a lot faster rate of speed. So when you're getting the waves and we have those breakwaters out there, and then that's where all the sand's going to. Where it used to be, you know, I grew up around here, so we'd go down to the beach. I didn't live in North Beach, but we were, you know, go up there once in a while. And when we get a nor'easter, we'd get, you know, 10 feet of sand added to the beach because you have all that sand floating down the bay and it just winds, you know, naturally comes to the beach, builds up on its own and almost self-dredges itself. So the breakwaters are kind of put in for protection. But if we could ever get a permit to pull those out and put them over there in front of the boardwalk where we need the riprap, open up maybe the south side to try it, you know, I think that would help. I think that'd be worth getting an engineering firm in here to look at it and see, you know, what they thought. Because every time, you know, when you get it from the east, you saw the sand that was on the streets just from the wave action came over the seawall. So you can imagine and we did get probably 2 feet of sand, Mayor, on the boardwalk by the clock there that came up on the boardwalk and was all around the Welcome Center and around the
We
clock.
used to have 5 steps onto the beach. We now have 2.
Yeah, so it adds sand for sure if you get the right direction. I'm sure, you know, it might be the case where it takes them out too, but when it takes it out now, unfortunately, it's catching right on the backside of the breakwaters, and that's what's silting it in. It's not like going out and going down the bay. It's staying there. So if it came in, you know, it might come up on the beach, and then when it leaves, it's silting in because the breakwaters are actually holding it because you got your wave action coming through the rocks, but it's not as strong pulling it back out, and your breakwaters are kind of capturing it. So it's, you know, gives it time to settle out and silt in right there. So, I mean, you walk in the other day, it was northwest wind. You could walk all the way out to the jellyfish net, you know, and then out there by the breakwaters, it was actually more sand than it was. There's a little bit of a channel you walk through and you get out there and it's piled up against the rocks. So, but, you know, that would be a smart thing to do before we maybe, you know, have an engineer come in, because it takes probably a year to get a permit to do a dredge like that anyway. But have someone come in, do a dredge design, but also look at, you know, what could be causing it, what could be done to prevent it. And that's another area where we could definitely have the RFP, the stormwater, whoever wins that bid, take a look at that also.
All right, I want to jump in here a second. Because the last time it was done when I was on the council was during my second term, so that was somewhere up between 10 and 14. But I don't remember it taking almost a year to get a permit. I think it takes you like a couple of months. Somebody help me out here, Stacy, Joanne, or somebody done it. Because I guess what I'm saying is we should be, the permits need to be done now. Just because we get the permission doesn't mean we need to go ahead and dredge the sand. But we can't wait until April to decide, oh yeah, we really need to dredge. It's not going to happen.
True. Yeah, if we had any thoughts of doing it, we do need to start the permit process.
Somebody help me out. Doesn't it take about 2 or 3 months? I don't think it takes a year. I think it takes about 2 or 3 months to get the permits, right?
Greg, I was there with you, and the thing which I remember about it was trying to find the quality sand to bring back, which we eventually got from Chesapeake Beach. I think that's what was holding it up, because you had to find, because you didn't want stuff that had sediment, that had some, you know, lead or whatever had been gone in the sediment. We had to find the quote right sand to be able to dredge back. I think that's what took up a lot of time. I don't remember if the permitting process took a lot of time.
I think I disagree on that. I think we were lucky enough to get sand from another project. That's what that was. I don't think we were looking for that particular sand. But I do remember those permits take a while. It has nothing to do with the sand. Have
So
somebody correct me here if I'm wrong.
let's know what we won't be able to correct it, but what we can do is find out for you. We're dredging, so it's different than beach replenishing.
Right.
MD is heavily involved. Also, when you dredge, if the product is not meet a certain criteria, then we need to find some place to dispose of it. And that was one of our problems last time, was disposal. On 2018, we actually put the sand back onto the beach.
Right. That's what we did the first time I did it when I was on.
We can find out exactly what the time period is. We can apply for it, and I'll find the drop dead date on the permit, how good it's for. So, you know, that's easy enough to do. I can do that starting next week and get that answer to y'all. We just need to, you know, as we go through this process, you know, we said it was 180 some thousand, almost 190 4 years ago. And if it's like anything else, I'm saying 250 or above to do it again.
In my opinion, we need to do it, because if we don't, the pavilion will be gone. The building next to the Welcome Center will be gone. And we're just gonna be throwing money at it, and instead of it's pay me now, pay me later.
All right, I'll find out the time frame, and then
Again, thank you for doing that, because it doesn't hurt to get the permit started now. And if we use them, fine. If we decide not to, nothing lost.
Right. I'll find out the time frame and give a report to council next week.
All right, thanks. Sorry, Paul, I jumped in on your time.
No problem. The other thing I just want to throw out there, I'm going to look into this a little bit more, and maybe it could be something that we could use these funds, or maybe not. But one of the things I think we can improve from an IT perspective is actually having fiber run between our buildings. Because right now we have, I don't even know, like a half dozen or more different Comcast connections that are going out of the various buildings, versus running fiber from all of our outbuildings back to, let's say, town hall, and having one demarcation point there back to Comcast. One, that'll save cost. Two, it's better for things like security and so forth. So I'm going to look into that and see what that might cost, and maybe we consider that possibly for a potential capital improvement as well.
I wrote it down.
That's all I have.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go down. Greg, you're next.
Oh, man, we got enough time here. Anyway, so I guess it seems like from looking at this list, a lot of this is dealing with mainly, I mean, water issues. I mean, a few street issues here, everything from water saddles to well pits, valve lines, wet wells, underground storm drains, access utility holes, refurbishing chlorine. There's a lot of water issues, repair stuff on here. And I'm not kicking at them, just saying. I guess my bottom line is, what are the three main projects? Donnie, if you were living in a world where you get anything fix you want, what would be your three projects?
That's why I have them after the grants, 4, 5, and 6. Because when I get called at 2 in the morning and it's 0 degrees outside, or 20 degrees like it's been lately, and the problem for me is we need to put some thought in it. I don't want to say that, but it is 32 years old infrastructure. It's zinc steel in the ground with salt water. So you're gonna have saddles that break. It's just a matter of how many and how quick. Meter pits are pretty much the same thing. And the reason I have them listed there, we started out looking at, because like the mayor said, when this first came out, it was pretty much an infrastructure utility type money. Now it's been opened up. So I'd like to get the council, if they have other stuff to put on there, definitely add it on. But the thing with the small crew I have, and like to keep water service going to residents, and if we turn the water off for an hour somewhere, we'll get 25 calls. You know what I mean? When's the water coming back? So these things would help eliminate some of the unforeseen or unplanned outages. We have outages for new house connections, stuff like that, where we advertise on the web, and we don't have nowhere near the calls. But emergency main breaks, with the weather this year, we finally had a real winter. Knock on wood, I'll say it tonight, and we'll have one tomorrow probably, or Saturday. But we've been lucky so far. But looking at the condition of the saddles and stuff, I tried to get a picture of one, but last one we had was a couple months ago and we threw it away. But just the condition of those, and if the rest of the saddles are like that, it's only a matter of time. It's not, it's year. It's not going to be 5 years for sure. It's going to be sooner than later. And like I said, this system's 32 years old. Unfortunately, didn't have stainless steel back then. When we replace them with stainless now, they're 50-year type, lifetime expectancy. So I'd say those things are probably just because of, that affects me the most about getting called out at night and having to worry and stress out about, man, we're going to run out of water. We're going to have this. Can we get it fixed? Get a crew out there.
And then I take it, I'm gonna jump in there. I'm trying to not to cut you off, but so
No, go ahead.
I take it number 9 would be included in that too, with the access hole at 5th Street in Chesapeake.
That might be number 1 actually, because I think we can get that fixed for a fairly reasonable price. But that is a serious problem that we'll have, if we have a sewer, if that collapses or we have a sinkhole there at the middle of 5th and Chesapeake, that's not going to be good. So that might
So
be
what I'm
something
looking
that,
at right here basically is number 6 and number 9 is only $170K to get
Right.
done.
right.
The other ones, I mean, if you add all this together, we're looking at, right at about 2.5 mil. And of course, we don't have that much.
I don't.
So,
Sorry, Greg.
all right, I got it. So thank you. I just wanted to know what you felt about this.
They're big ticket items, and I have a hard time committing that much money out of this money that the town's getting, because I'd like to be able to spread it around where we could address several issues instead of doing one thing. And like I
Yeah,
said, we maybe could.
That's 3 issues right there. And then those are major issues that could really put us in a bad spot if they're not taken care of. So
That's very true.
Amen. Amen.
all right.
Infrastructure is not pretty, but we need to give our residents water and sewer. So,
Yeah.
all right,
And
anything
so-
else, Greg?
And then again, this is money that's basically been dropped in our lap that we can do something with that we weren't expecting to get done. So, in addition to what we've already budgeted and what we're working to get grant money for to support some of those items. So I'm good with that. And of course, more discussion to be followed on this about your priorities, Donnie. And so thank you guys for working to put this together. And the mayor's going to talk about it. I'll just throw this out there since it's my time. I mentioned earlier that I thought it would be a good idea if we, send this list out and invite the town residents to see if they have any recommendations or input. This isn't a final list. We're still working on it. Of course, it's subject to change. We have made any decisions. Other municipalities in the state of Georgia, state of Maryland has done this. They've had some participation, some have had none. But the bottom line is most of the people were very appreciative that they were invited to participate in the process, and they were happy with what the mayor and the council were proceeding on trying to help their town. So that's all I had to add. And I'll
address that before we close tonight.
Thank you,
Greg.
sir.
No problem. Thank you, Greg. Good info. I'm going to keep coming around. Ken, I see you in the left.
I really don't have much more to add. But I had one question because it struck me, Donnie, when you were talking about the valves and the new valves and pipes. What is this? How are the pipes themselves? Because I would imagine they probably were put in about 1990 with everything else. What are we looking at those? Because I'm positive they're getting toward their end of life, and they could crack not at a junction, but in the pipe itself. So what are we looking? Because I don't see anything here. I mean, it's hard to tell because they're buried still.
No, but I can answer it quickly. The good thing about the pipe is that C900, which is a plastic material, had came out and they started using that. And that's about a 1/2 inch thick, but it's actually plastic. And that's the best type of pipe, the main water line, all your main line. We have a 12-inch main line coming out of the tower that runs down Dayton Avenue, Chesapeake through the main. Then you come off with 8-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch. But that's all, except for the valves, that's all PVC pipe. So that, could be 100 years. And that's why I'm glad that was out. A lot of, Calvert County Water and Sewer worked there for 20 years. We had a lot of ductile iron, a lot of problems in like Bayside Forest, anywhere near the water with iron pipe. But luckily, this project, the C900 that came out. So that is what the main lines are, is the C900 type pipe. So that should be good for another, 40, 50 years, or plastic lasts forever. So hopefully that's the case. We're in a lot better
Okay,
shape with the pipe than the connections, for sure.
The connections. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep.
That's just one thing that popped in my head as we were talking about everything
Right.
else. I'm thinking about the pipes themselves.
Good
But
question.
yeah,
though.
that's what I had.
Yep.
Mayor,
Right.
can I jump back in for one quick second?
Absolutely.
So there's one other thing we had on the list here. Number 11, sidewalks. Sidewalks are, that funding is also, we get money for that each year, of course, in the highway user funds. And I don't know if anyone's seen the budget yet that the governor submitted with the highway user revenues in it. Crap, I'm sorry. But we do get money to take care of the sidewalks, the roads and the sidewalks. So I'm not sure if we want to extend any of these funds for that particular project. When we get to the end, I'll come back up. I'm pulling up the number now that North Beach is supposed to be getting. So
Got
I
it.
just want to recap on that right quick.
Cool. Thank you. And I'm sure Joe might have two on that.
You might already have the number, but
All right. So Elizabeth.
Well, I just want to concur with everybody that, you know, the infrastructure, essential infrastructure is probably the top of the list. I don't want to repeat it. We kind of don't want to kick a dead horse there. But I do want to come back to something on the list that is not necessarily essential, but because I have my minute here, I'll add it. So
Take your time. Absolutely.
I don't know when this conversation happened, but I do remember in recent memory that there was some discussion about those flower boxes not being designed well enough to facilitate drainage of flooding and stuff down there on the waterfront. I just remember when somebody brought it up to me, I thought my comment to them was, listen, I'm not touching the flower boxes because I might get in trouble if I say something about the flower boxes from the garden club. So I'm not going to say anything about the garden club. But since we have this opportunity to look at the flower boxes, whenever that opportunity presents itself, maybe we can design something that's going to help us, you know, not necessarily contribute to the flooding, but facilitate drainage down there. I don't know what that would look like, but it was just a thought. I just thought I'd add it in.
Well, my idea with the design, Elizabeth, is for actually, you know, everything's the greener, so we could get credit if we had some kind of treatment system there. You know, if we do design the flower boxes so they can at least treat the rainwater, you know, make that part of that, like a rain garden type deal. So they would drain, they would work, you know, efficiently or whatever. We'd have a company come in, like I say, that did Sunrise Garden Park that specialize in that. You know, you might not be flush with the road. Maybe they'll be, you know, sunk a foot down or get some ideas. And then we're going to bring that up to the RFP vendor who is selected for the stormwater, you know, flood plan too. So
Right.
they might look at that
yeah.
also.
Yeah, I just, so with rain gardens, I think we want to start using some different terminologies around here because there's different things besides rain gardens that we can do that contribute. And really, you know, I asked the question about that, like what percentage of the town actually benefits from rain gardens, and I wasn't able to get a good answer on that. And I know it's not 100%. I know it's probably even less than 80%. And the problem that we have, the challenge we have there is, while we have this press going around this saying rain gardens are going to be now the Rosetta Stone for solving this problem, it's not. And they're not cheap to put in, especially for, you know, the individual homeowner. So yeah, we just need to start looking at how we, you know, our press on the different solutions that we're using, because I don't know that rain garden is the correct word, but I understand the usage.
I didn't really say that correctly either, because rain gardens, you're right, they just treat the pollution. They don't do anything to facilitate draining of the water, but they clean the water. We'd get credit for making them where they'd clean the water, but they wouldn't help much with draining.
But anyway, you got my point about the beds, so I'm off. So thank you.
No, thank you. Absolutely. Mickey.
Proud dad.
That's right.
So you're going to hear her throughout this.
That's all right.
So the first three, 1, 2, 3, do we know ideas of where we are on those grants, or those?
We just submitted them on Monday. They were due. We submitted them on Monday.
Okay.
And then we should hear back by June 1st.
Okay. then on the other end, it would be like, I honestly would say, Donnie, go through and mark things that like have to be done, period. Like the Fifth Street issue, like that needs to be done. And then like I agree with Greg, like the sidewalks in the streets, that's always a budget item. And that's HUR funds. Now we may want to be a little bit more active, like put X in the budget, but then put a little bit over X for maybe the ARPA funds. And I know that some of that also ties into the stormwater plan with how we're going to do that. And like, also like we have to hit up parking and figure out like parking will play into that too, on like unimproved shoulders we have and how to fix the parking and arrange the parking and deal with stormwater and that. So some of these are sort of like the beginning of multiple trees all hitting one spot. So, but I see no issue with, I mainly just want to see like a background list of these are the things that need done, period. Because then those, it's like, cool, we'll flag that, clear that, what's left.
Okay.
And then look at the what's left and then looking at the prioritizing.
Okay.
Like adding the extra rocks for the riprap. To me, that's sort of, that can be grant. That could be other grants that could be set aside different ways. Because every time we add more rocks, somehow we always end up finding a way to expand a boardwalk over the rocks. So, and I've been with Donnie on a few of the saddle repairs. Like one of them was up in San Francisco, where the saddle broke, and that was a brand new saddle. So I totally see the point in replacing saddles, and I definitely want to do that before we pave roads. So we're not cutting in the new pavement to deal with that. So
we'll reorganize this for y'all, and basically so the first three are the ones we apply for the grants, but we will also, the next row will be, these are non-negotiables. These really should be addressed. And then the final one will be, these are going to happen down the road, but it's something that we can work with, just like you also with the HURs and stuff like that.
yeah,
When we get the RFP back, or when the person does the study, that's going to help us with sidewalk and street paving and all that too. So there's a lot of pieces moving around right now, but I think it's all going to come together. But we'll work on that. Absolutely.
yeah. And I could even see us like, even like just budgeting each year, hey, we want to replace X saddles every year, and just putting that in a long-term plan anyway. Even if we don't roll it in the ARPA funds, just, hey, every year we're going to put this much towards saddles in the budget item, and just plan it out that way, just as a yearly capital improvement.
We just need to coordinate it, make sure we do the ones that we're going to pave. So it's got to go.
Yeah, well, yeah, like if we're going to try and pave blocks, it's like, cool, do the saddles and pave the blocks. It'll like work through systematically as well. And that plays into the budgeting process as well as everything else.
Yep.
Here, say
Okay.
hi. Here, say hi. Let me make it bigger so you can see everybody. Okay, now say hi. See, they're all waving.
On camera now, watch out.
I
Camera
know.
shot.
Hi, Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte.
Uh-oh.
Here, wave.
Look, she's quiet too. She's, oh, I like this.
We do have that money, like the mayor said, but we've really had a aggressive grants approach too. So even though this is all this stuff's on the list, if a grant comes up that'll cover any of this stuff, we are actively seeking grants to cover anything we can find. You know, water saddles and any type of anything we have on this list could be a grant too.
All right, Mickey, what else you got?
Did we ever, it used to be Veronica, did we ever get anybody else as her replacement through the grant writer program?
Not yet. We're working on it.
Okay.
Yes, Joe, we're working on it. We had a meeting yesterday or day before, and we're working on it. We do have somebody at the very bottom, Tom Litke, who we've had speak to us and spoke to the flood committee. So I think you're going to see some mass improvement on that. And that's for at least so Joanne doesn't kill me. So we are going to make it happen. But yeah,
Maybe I was just thinking of just help, like just extra people to help double check and just do some footwork. So
we met with Gretchen. She's reaching out to her staff. So it started. It's just we should have some great information here soon, hopefully.
okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you. I'll mute now so she doesn't take over the meeting.
All right, I'm gonna roll back to Greg. You were gonna look up something, or?
Oh, yes. So, Madam Treasurer, please feel free to jump in if I'm off my rocker here. I'm looking at the notice that was sent out. And it looks like last year, for the fiscal year of July, we got $128,384.11. This coming fiscal year, starting 1 July, we're estimated to get $131,815.28. So that's $3,431 more than we got last year for highway users. So that's for roads and sidewalks.
Yeah. All right, we'll break it down on the budget this year.
Yes, ma'am.
What projects going to,
Cool.
Yes, ma'am.
where?
All right. Earlier Greg made a recommendation and I absolutely support the recommendation. So here's what I like to propose. Next week, we have council meeting. The following week on the 17th, I would like to have another work session, but invite the public. And Greg's going to work with me on the wording, so don't yell at me, Greg. We're going to make sure it makes sense. But what we want to do is get their input on what they think and what they want to see. And we might get some good information, we might not, but at the end of the day, let's offer it up and let's see what we can do. We'll do our massive, our marketing. We'll make sure the outreach is out there, and we'll come back together on the 17th, and we'll do the same time, and then we'll see where we go. In the meantime, we will clean this up, edit this up. I got a lot of notes, and I will get this back out. And if anything comes to mind, please reach out to DB, reach out to Joe, reach out to me, and then let's get this thing nailed down. I agree with Joe. If we can do the expedited version, I apologize, I'm probably not using the right word. I think we should work our butt off to make that happen, and I think we can do it. I think these items are not pretty, but if some of these fail, our residents are going to be in a bad way, and I don't think that's what we want. So I think we're all on the same page. And other than that, I don't have anything else. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that might want to say something. Council, staff, or any residents or anybody out there?
I think the only one we have out there is Mr. Kite, or Mr. Light, sorry.
Yep, that's Tom Lipke.
Tom Licky, my apologies.
No, you're good. You're good.
I feel bad. I can't pronounce it yet, Greg, and I met him 10 times.
Come on, there's got to be some Polish people in North Beach.
Oh, it's a lot. I just can't. My son-in-law is.
It's quite all right. I'm sure it was made up at Ellis Island a long time ago. Don't worry, but
We'll
I'm not. I told Donnie I just wanted to listen. I think you guys are doing a great job. So see where I can help chip in along the way.
Don't worry. I have you on speed dial, Tom.
Okay.
We're gonna get you a nickname too.
Tom L. Tom L.
T-Bone.
There you go.
Does any council member, any staff member want to say anything before we adjourn?
What are you cleaning up on the list? Maybe
I made Lauren sent in some information I like to add to the list. There's no addition, just Lauren, she's got some good ideas to really elaborate a little deeper. And just clean that up a little bit. I'm not adding anything, just cleaning up.
I got a price too, Greg. It's $28,000 per block for concrete, so we can put a figure on there. And what I'll do is the mayor, like he said, we'll check on the permit process for the beach dredge.
So we'll get those two things out.
Ken had a good point, but what it is, you got to actually go out there, take a sample of the sand. You got to see if the sand qualifies, put back on the beach. You got to go through all that process, find a dredge site to dump it and everything else. So, yep. Get started on that for you.
All right. Are we good?
Sir.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Move second. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye, Charlotte. Bye. The most